close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon.
All right, hey everyone. How's everyone's Thursday going? Sorry about that. Okay, that's better. All right, my mic was really loud. Sound very loud in my ear. So tonight we're gonna continue this road to DevNet Expert by looking at a subject that I personally I'm not that strong at, which are Yang data models and some of the protocols that surround that. So Rpcs, Netconf, RESTconf. We won't get into all of it tonight, but we will definitely dive into the Yang data models. All right, cool. Hey Julio, I see you. It was by the way, it was good talking to you earlier. We had a good conversation. All right, just let me know, Julio, or anyone in chat. Just let me know if the volume's too loud. For some reason, I'm thinking like it sounds like it's really loud, at least my voice. So yeah, if you could just let me know. I'll try to be a little quieter. All right, so I'm gonna pull up. Let's see. All right. Audio sounds good. All right, cool. Thanks, Julio. Yeah, I like it's like the feedback or something in my headphones. I tried turning that down a little bit, but anyways. So what are we doing? Oh yeah, so we're gonna take a look at. Oh hey, Matt Steele. Hey, I've definitely talking to you in Discord earlier. It was, rich tables for the win. Yeah, man, I'm telling you, that is a game changer. You will not look back at Pretty Table ever again. I'm telling you. Yeah, Rich is definitely an awesome library. So yeah, I'm just pulling up the study plan. So last stream, there's been some changes, right? I'm not gonna go through all of them, but I noticed. So last stream I think it was Blues. He's normally in the stream. He brought up a point of Cisco DevNet. They created a learning matrix, what they call it, but basically it breaks down each topic and it has documentation or links to specific labs, slideshows, vendor documentation, and just a good amount of resources. So I actually went through, and you can see I color coded some, and I highlighted the ones that I already reviewed. So you'll see with Yang, I've went through a couple already, and then orange, more or less, is just, since these are Cisco Live links, I actually validated that they were good to their presentation, the slideshows. And if you've never been on Cisco Live's website, they have a lot of good past Cisco Live presentations, the video and the slides. And so, I highly encourage, if you're studying for anything, to take a look if they have a learning matrix, or whether it's a DevNet exam or not. Just go to Cisco Live's website and kind of just search the topic you're looking for. So I did start looking at these. I just haven't checked them off the list. Matt says, so it's like Nick Russo's 10-week plan. Kind of. This one is more catered to me personally because I know kind of my weak points. So you'll notice software design and develop and deployment. What is it? Software design and It's all of topics. Topic 1.0 isn't on here. I kind of put that towards the end of kind of review. The key things, because it's a practical exam, and I also looked at how it's broken down. RESTconf, Netconf, basically Yang data models are a huge factor. So that's kind of why I'm spending 3-4 weeks here. There's a good chance this gets slimmed down to 3, maybe 2 weeks, because I do need to include some more. I only have 1 week of security, and I have 4 weeks of Kubernetes. There's a good chance I slim this down as well. I just need, there's something, I just need to change this around a little bit, because there are some missing pieces. So I actually did take a look at Nick's DevCore study plan. I used it a little bit whenever I studied for that exam, but I looked it over today, and there's definitely some good resources on there, and I have a subscription to Pluralsight, so there's a good chance that I actually take a little bit or look off of his as well. But I guess to answer what was brought up, this is definitely more focused towards what I know my weaknesses are, and probably a little too much towards that. As you can see, Kubernetes and Yang need to be dialed down a bit, especially the Kubernetes piece, because Kubernetes and containers overall is only about 10% of the exam. So I definitely will slim this down a bit, and then probably leave a little more room for for example, HTTP and kind of the caching, headers, kind of think of your REST concepts. Just probably need to review those for a week, and some of the other things that go in with that. So, but this definitely isn't to replace or be like his 10-week plan, because his 10-week plan, you can tell there's a lot of effort that was put behind it, and it covers all the exam. This does not cover every little topic. This is more, like I said, focused on my weaknesses. So with that said, I'm going to be going over, I already went through the study plan. This is constantly, like I said, kind of being revised, especially kind of the later weeks. This learning matrix, like I said, I've been using it, kind of reviewing some of the topics. But tonight, we're going to actually be looking at a piece of software called Yang Suite, and the purpose of it is to, let me pull it up here. The purpose of it is to basically provide a user interface to look through different Yang data models. And so for those that aren't familiar, Yang data models are kind of like the standardized way to interact with network devices, using a structured model. So it has its perks over something traditional like SNMP, because you can get, along with the monitoring side, which obviously SNMP is super popular, you also can configure using Yang data models. So we're going to take a look at this software, getting it up and running, and then messing around with a Cisco CSR 1000V in CML. So it's very easy. I got this up and running last night. So if it seems like, wow, that was really fast, it's because I got it up and running last night. So I went with the Docker-based installation. There was some other, I think Python. Yeah, it mentioned Python here. I just felt like it was a lot for just a Python virtual environment. So I just went the Docker route, and it was pretty easy. So basically you clone the repository from GitHub, and then let me pull it up here. So well, I'm already in it, but let me go back. So this, I basically just did a git clone, and this is kind of the files you see here. Let me put it in a nicer. So readme, and so there's a couple of directories. You see Docker and images. So to get it up and running, you change into the Docker directory, and you'll see here that there's a shell script, bash script, whatever you want to call it, to get it up and running. And basically what this does is it runs this Docker compose file. And so if you check out the Docker compose file, you'll kind of see what it's made up of. Looks like they created their own image, which probably stores a lot of the actual application. I do know that they're running Django, so this kind of has probably it's the web app. It kind of has everything bundled in it, and then you see it's kind of fronted with Nginx. So that's more or less just kind of like good to know, like being able to read a Docker compose file and just kind of understanding. I'm not, like I said, I won't break it down, but it's good just to be able to like say, oh wow, this nice piece of software, like I actually can somewhat understand what's going on, right? So I just like personally doing that. So all right, so I mentioned that startup script. So all we're gonna do is basically just run the script, and you'll see here there's actually a couple nice CLI prompts. So set up an admin user. So we're just gonna call this admin, and we're just gonna do my password, and for an email we're just gonna say dan@devnetdan.com. Okay. Yeah, so you'll see here it's kind of building, kind of going through that Docker compose file. And because I didn't detach it, or I didn't detach from kind of building this file, or the Docker containers, I actually have to keep this terminal open. There will be, there's ways that you can detach from the Docker instance, so that way you don't have to keep this open. It will just run in the background. But you'll see here everything looks like it started. I will warn you, so in this VM, this Ubuntu VM, I had Nginx installed, for other purposes, and because it was running as a service, it was binded, I guess binded is the right word, to port 80, and so I had to stop that service because this service, the web front end, and I believe the Nginx container actually binds to port 80 on your host. So you may have to stop your Nginx service, or if you have any other web server running, Apache or whatever, just as kind of a heads up. Okay, so that your installation most likely won't go that fast, because like I said, you'll have to pull down all those Docker images, whereas this, like I said, I pulled it all down last night, so that's why it went faster. So now it's up and running. Like I said, I minimized it, so it's just chilling here on the side. And you have to use localhost 8443, and that's found in the documentation. So you go to 8443. You can see there's just some EULAs to accept. Oh, whatever. And yeah, so this is your landing page. The documentation kind of highlights like how to get started. And I'm not gonna go through the documentation. I actually was a little somewhat prepared today, so we don't have to go through the documentation or read the instructions. But I'll kind of highlight over. So to get everything up and running, you have to go to the Setup tab, and you'll see here Device Profiles. So you can create a new device profile, and essentially it's just adding your device to an inventory, and it's pretty simple. They highlight what you need. So you need to create a profile name, the IP address, username, password. It doesn't show as required, but you need to. So that way all these other features like Netconf, GNMI can just inherit. So you kind of just check the boxes as you need them. For the CSR I'm running tonight, in this lab, I just have Netconf enabled, but I will in the near future have RESTconf enabled as well, so that way I can interact with it with RESTconf. And so yeah, I pretty much just check the box. You don't, unless you have different specifications or a different user account. Like in production, there's a chance you would have a separate user just for your Netconf interactions, maybe like a service account or something like that, which isn't good practice. But let's be real. I mean, I know that you have some sort of, call it a script account, service account, whatever. So you may put that down here, but yeah, and then just make sure to skip SSH validation if, in this case we're in a lab environment, but if you don't want to validate the SSH key exchange. And that's about it. Yeah, and then for SSH, obviously you would just check this box as well. Change these parameters if they're different from up here, and then check connectivity, create profile. I will say, anytime it says like check connectivity, I get a little nervous because I'm like, oh great, like something's gonna fail. There's something on this that's gonna fail. But pretty much was fine. I think I fat fingered the user account that I created for Netconf on the CSR, but I created a new user account, tried again, and it worked. As you may or may not know, to enable Netconf, all you have to do is type in your global configuration, type in netconf-yang, and it will enable kind of the Netconf process, and you're pretty much good to go at that point. But that's pretty much it as far as configuring the device and then adding it to Yang Suite. And then from here, the only other thing you have to do is create a Yang repository and then a Yang data set, or module set, I'm sorry. So the repository, oh good, they're here. Got nervous for a second. I created these last night. There's a couple ways to create your repositories, and basically all this is importing your modules. And so you'll see that here are all the modules that I have, and the way I got this, you're probably like, how did you get all those? So GitHub, actually all the Yang modules are on GitHub, and I'll just show you. So if you're ever curious, or you just actually want to view the Yang models that we're looking at tonight, they're all found in this GitHub. And you can see there's vendor specific ones, there's standard ones, like industry standard ones, but we're going to look at the vendor ones, specifically Cisco, iOS XE, since we'll be messing with an XE device. And then all of these are your different software releases. So the iOS XE device is running 17.3.2. So you could see here 17.3.1 is kind of that latest release that we could take advantage of all these Yang models. So we'll dive into this folder, and basically all I did from here, there's a couple ways that you can upload these. So you can either download all of them, download this folder and then copy all of these Yang models, right? Or what I did was, so you can upload, you can actually use Netconf to pull the available models from the device, or you can use Git. So you literally can put in the repository name and then the directory where you want to pull the models from. So I actually did that. So I just did yang models / yang is the repository, it's the master branch, and then we're going into vendor Cisco XE 1731. So that's kind of how I added it. So I just filled out these fields, and then I said include subdirectories, import yang files. That took a total of about 2 minutes after I imported all of them, and here they all are. So after you have all the modules in this specific repository, then you can create your module set. And you'll see here, I have a couple usernames, but you can see the admin user, which was me yesterday, created the CSR 1731 yang set. And so you have all the yang modules that we added to our repository in this list here. And then the yang modules in this set. So what I did was I went through the let me pull it up here. I went through the exam topics and what was needed to be configured. Basically, it says via automation, so I'm just assuming there's a chance that we have to use yang data models to configure. So you'll see, let's see. Yeah, configure network devices on existing infrastructure using Netconf or RESTconf, given yang analysis tools. So this tells me basically configure a network device using Yang Suite, because that's what's available. Yang Suite's available in the lab environment. Creating RESTconf, Netconf payloads. Right here, automate the configuration of a network device and configure these components. All of these components have a yang data model associated with them. So that's kind of why I figured, okay, let's just get this working and kind of go from there. So I'm going to be getting this data from BGP, OSPF, the ACLs, interfaces, and then configure a couple of the components as well. So let's see. Oh, Matt, sorry, I didn't see your message. It says it's retracted now, but if you want to ask it again, feel free. I'm sorry, I was just kind of in my zone right there. Okay, where was I? All right. So we have our device profile, which we talked about. We have our repository that we pulled down from Git, and just to highlight this again, there's multiple ways to pull down the yang data models. So you can upload them, the individual yang files, or a folder of the yang files. You can use Netconf, which basically you can connect to the device and pull down the available data models that are on the device. So think of that as almost like an SNMP walk, where like you discover the available mid modules. It's relative. I'm not saying it's not the same process at all, but just think of it from that perspective. And then secure copy. You can just copy from another device, or if you have a central server or something like that. Mr. Hopalong. Hopefully I said that right. That's actually kind of a cool name, Mr. Hopalong. Did you find out about Yang Suite on your own, or was it the DevCore training or other resources? How did you find out about it? So a couple things. So I found out about it. One, it's on the DevNet expert, the list of software. Let me pull it up. So I found the equipment list. So I've heard about it because I used to use what was it? What did it used to be called? There was some really, like, it was Java based, I think, and it was kind of the same thing where you listed out all the Yang models. Shoot, I forget the name of it. They discontinued it. They quit support. It was on GitHub, and they quit supporting it. And they said, hey, there's a new tool coming out, and I think Yang Suite replaced that. But yeah, so under the Cisco DevNet Expert Equipment and Software list, down here at the bottom, yeah, Yang Suite 2.8. So I've heard about it before this, but this is kind of where I found out about it. So, Matt, I didn't want to interrupt your zone. It was a trivial question. It's okay. Hey, any question, if you keep it in the chat, I'll read it. I promise. Just sometimes I'm on something. So yeah, but feel free to just keep any question you have, put in the chat. I'll definitely answer it or try to. Okay. So now time to do this thing. All right. So I have CML booted here. Very basic environment. So we have the extension connection, which basically is I have it configured as a bridge to my home network, so that way I just have direct access without any sort of NAT or proxy. So I basically have the CSR hanging off of an unmanaged switch connected into just my home network. I have the console of that open down here, and I created a user on it called Netconf 2. Don't ask me what happened to Netconf 1. Let's just say that the user just didn't work, so I just decided to go to Netconf 2. So just to kind of show you real quick. So all you have to have, like I said, is SSH enabled and operational. I want to say it's a requirement for Netconf, just because I know Netconf runs it's TCP based, and I believe it runs over SSH, but with changes, I don't know if there's any sort of changes where it can reach out just over port 830, which is kind of that Netconf, the default Netconf port. But anyways, so you have to have a username set up, and you have to have SSH set up. So we have show run. I don't have to show you the username, I already logged in. So let me show you the netconf configuration. Yeah, so just literally netconf-yang, and it kicks off a process where it boots up the netconf process. It kind of, I forget what it's the exact wording of it. Let me see if I can find it. It showed up here. No. Here we go. Running configuration has been synchronized. Oh, no, that's just saying running config. Anyways, just know it kind of boots up the service. Think of it as from that perspective. Let's see. Angel, hey, dude, you've missed. I haven't seen you in forever. I haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for joining. You're on an exciting journey now. This is we're talking about Yang data models. All right. I have no idea what that's about, but anyways. So I think it's netconf capabilities or show capability feature netconf routing. No, maybe it is show netconf session. No. So I'll have to look it up in a second. I was going to show you the netconf process. Let's say show netconf Cisco OSXE. All right, let's see. Yeah, so enabling it is netconf or netconf-yang. Yeah, so you do have to have SSH. I don't know why I doubt myself sometimes on stream. Like, I know for a fact that it ran over SSH. Yeah, so let's see. verifying. There we go. Show platform software Yang management process. Yikes. All right. Show platform software. Now, I wonder if MN NetFlow. No. So does Yang. Oh shoot. Yang process. Okay. I thought there was one that was more specific to Netconf, but maybe I'm wrong. So it just shows all the processes related to Yang. But that's I feel like that's not it though. I saw this like really cool. I used this really cool command yesterday. This is what it is, dude. This is what it is right here. Yang Explorer. Mr. Hopalong, if you're still in the chat, this is the piece of software I was referring to. Like, this is the one that was the predecessor to Yang Suite. It was a pain in the butt to get going and to use, but this is kind of like what was before Yang Explorer. Yeah. Anyways, all right, I'm not gonna mess around too long with that, but just trust me and know that Netconf is running. Okay, so now that Netconf's running and we have connectivity to the device, let's go ahead and check it out. And the way we do that is protocols. Down here in protocols, you go to the protocol that you want to use to connect to the device, establish a session to a device. And so I clicked on that conf, and now you have to choose the Yang set. So remember, the Yang set is like a select, how do I put this? A slimmed down version of the repository, like the specific modules that you want to use. And so you'll see as soon as I select the Yang set and go to modules that you have all of these available. And like I said, they're focused around what's on the exam. So BGP, OSPF, interfaces, VLANs, ACLs. I think that's it. So the one I like to mess around with a lot is the interfaces one, because it's just the easiest. So we'll do that. We'll select the device. So this is us, this is selecting that CSR and CML. Matt says, yeah, I tried that when doing the CBT Nuggets DevNet course, and oh my god, that tool is terrible. Hey, I'm not the only one then. I'm not the only one. It definitely is. It was so bad. I was using that, I think, whenever I was trying to figure out Yang models, Yang data models. Like, it might have been the DevNet Associate. It might have been kind of the same thing. But yeah, man, it was so bad. I got it up and running once, and I was like, after like I tore it down, I was like, I don't even know how to get it running again. All right, so so I have the module. You can select multiple modules, but I just did the interfaces. I selected the device that we want to connect with, and then now I'm just loading the modules. It might take a second. Let's see. Okay, so you can see here. I don't know what this config resolve error is. Anyways, I want to say, because it might be trying to pull the config. Oh, you know what? I bet it's trying to pull the config via Netconf. Because so there's a few different operations or actions you can do with Netconf. Get config, edit config, get, which get is literally just pulling a specific feature, and that's what we'll be using. But anyways, before I jump into that, you see here I have we authenticated using Netconf 2 from, and then this is the Ubuntu VM that's on my home network, the one that I have Yang Suite running on, and it was authorized, so we're good to go. So let's let's see. So we have this here. Okay, so now we've loaded the module, the Cisco IOSXE interfaces module. And you can see it's here, but and this might, I just haven't messed around with the tool enough. I know for a fact the interfaces module is within the Cisco native model, so there's kind of two different models. There's the standard and there's the native. Standard may actually have another word. Open kind of pops in my head. Either way, you kind of have like your IETF industry standard models, right, that cover all vendors. You have your open config models, and then you have your vendor or native models, right? Your vendor native models obviously can be more specific to the type of device. So in this case, like we're looking at Cisco, and so like this is a native Cisco model. Matt says, it put a sour taste in my mouth when learning Yang. It made me think, who the hell wants to use Yang data model when this is the tool we have? Yeah, I actually agree with that, because I had such a tough time setting up that tool, and I've said this multiple times on stream, I'm a very visual learner, and I think a lot of network engineers are, because I mean, think about the level of detail we create network diagrams, right? I think just because that's just how a lot of us learn, is through, we're a lot of visual learners, and that's just my personal opinion. So like tools like this, right? So you could either look at like a nice graphical interface. So you can see here, there's the different features of the device, and these are containers of each, or modules for each of the different features. You could either look at this, right, with these nice folders, and like let's just pop into logging, for example, right? You can see the facility, you can see like the different pieces, the little leaves, and this isn't really like a lesson on Yang, but the little leaves are kind of like, think of it as like the smallest data point. So like a facility, right, that's part of the log message. You can see that there's some for like your buffered log, your log buffer, right, severity level. So you can see the different components that would make up the logging module. You either do that, or here you go to logging, and this is the Yang module that it's pulling from. This is just how it looks, right? Well, those are the revisions. All right, here we go. So like, or you can look at it from this perspective. Obviously on the exam, you'll have to look at it from this perspective. They will have Yang Suite available, but there's a chance that like you'll have to, I think one of them is write a Yang module, so you'll have to understand like what a grouping is, what's significant about a key and a leaf, and like, so you'll kind of have to understand what that means. But when you're first learning a tool, like Matt was saying, when you're first learning about a technology, having a tool like Yang Suite, which I lost it, there we go. This just helps you so much. So yeah, that's for me to just say, if you have a nice tool to help visualize some of these unheard of concepts. Sometimes, I can tell you the DevNet Associate was the first time I learned about a Yang model. So yeah, it was new to me. I heard about them, but like actually like messing around with them and like extracting data or editing config, it's kind of the first time. So yeah, Angel replied to Matt, I thought the same, because it also uses the old SNMP library as source of information. The idea is to divert from that with programmability. Yeah, Angel, you're kind of spot on. Like this, it's more or less to like, SNMP was good for what it did, and it's still good for monitoring purposes. Obviously, there's some security issues and some other questionable, constructs, but at the end of the day, this is kind of where everything's moving towards, right? Like, think about the reason why we parse CLI configuration, or I'm sorry, CLI output. We parse it so that way we can programmatically interact with it. And the whole idea is you programmatically interact with a structured data output. Well, that's what Yang data models are. Like, they're already structured and they're standardized, so it helps align everyone to the same structure. And you can use them for operational data, like model-driven telemetry, or you could use it to configure a device, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be the future. It's just a matter of time. And really, there are a lot of people using it now, so I don't even want to say future. I'm guessing, I guess I should be saying it from a perspective of relating it to SNMP. So, anyways, long rant is over. Let's check out interfaces. So, let's see. Let's see. Okay. Interfaces. Sorry, I had to click on something else there. It's in this list, and the worst part about this list is it's not alphabetical, so I know it's kind of like it's not too far. There we go. So interface is one of the easier ones. Jeez, my mic cord. So the difference between like your native model and let's say your standard model, your open model, I forget what it. I'm just gonna look it up real quick. Yang data models. Yeah, I know that. So I know IETF. Maybe let's check this out. The Cisco blog, dude. I just don't understand. I just don't know. Let's see. Models created by vendors are often referred to as native models. Yeah, I knew that they were called native, but I thought IETF and OpenConfig, I guess, are considered in the same, but it's not called other group. Shoot. I want to say it's like the standard. Anyways, I'll just call them the standard models. The name, it's just slipping my mind. But anyways, the native data model for an interface is formatted a little differently, whereas in your Yang data model, I'm sorry, your standard model that might be from the IETF, you'll have to say like, okay, interface name equals, and then you would have to actually say the name of the interface as it looks like on the device. So in our case, let me pull it up here. So in our case, why is this timing me out? Oh, it's timing it. So in our case, with an open data model or with a standard an IETF data model, Yang data model, I would have to say interface name equals and then put gigabit Ethernet 1. Whereas in the native model, you actually have to put, and you'll see what it looks like, the RPC over here. So we'll say we're going to get gigabit Ethernet. Okay, so interface. So, and this is what, let's see if it grabs all of them. There we go. Okay, so I just jumped a lot right there. Mr. Hopalong says, would it be safe to say that Yang Suite is the GUI version of writing configs compared to doing the same thing with NCC client or NC client? I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, NC client, just for those that don't know, is the Python library to use for Netconf interactions. So we'll actually be taking a look at that next stream. we'll kind of look at more of the programming side of things. But yeah, I would say this is more of the GUI, whereas NC client is more of the kind of the programmatic side. You're getting the same data and you're writing the same data. So like I know in NC client you create a filter, which is basically just a string, and which is actually like this string here, right? So you're still writing the same RPCs, but yeah, you saw like it's more point and click. So yeah, I would agree with that. It's more kind of the GUI version. Angel says same blog you visited said native IETF open config, and was that what you were looking for? Yeah, for some reason I don't know why it stuck in my head, but to me it was like native, and then there was one other word that described like IETF and open config, because those are standards, and I want to say they're called like standard models, right? Because there's the native models for the vendors like Cisco, Juniper, and so on. But for some reason, it's sticking in my head that like IETF and OpenConfig are called like standard models or something like that. Anyways, it's not super important. It was just stuck in my head. But I appreciate you looking though, Angel. Okay, so what I just did right here. Okay, so basically I went through, went to the interface module, and we'll kind of go side by side here, so that way you can see kind of what I'm doing. Let me pull it up here. Interface. Interface common? No, interfaces. There we go. Let's see. Mr. Hopalong said, would both be required for the DevNet Expert Lab, writing NC client scripts and Yang Suite, or will there be a preference? Good question. I'm gonna prepare for both, only because the exam topics says to automate the configuration, and it also mentions about writing a Yang module like from scratch. It sounds like. And but they're like, so there's that piece. Sorry, I'm pulling up the that's not it. So there's this piece here that says create a RESTconf or Netconf payload based on a given Yang module and interpret the result. It's kind of what we're doing now. Configure network devices on an existing infrastructure by using Netconf or RESTconf given Yang analysis tools. I looked through the software list, and pretty much Yang Suite's one of the only software pieces of software that I would consider a Yang analysis tool. There is this plugin for VS Code called Yankster. It's a really funny name. I haven't really looked at the extension too much. I imagine it's just like more of a markup though. But to answer your question, I'm going to be preparing for both, just because there's evidence that we can use the tool, but then you may also have to like create a netconf filter by using an XPath. So I want to make sure that I can use NC client to do that. And just as like a kind of another reason to know both, NC client is actually on the list of Python packages or libraries that are going to be installed. Let me find it here. Yeah, NC client 0.6.12 is going to be installed in the virtual Python environment in the lab. So yeah, I'm going to be kind of preparing for both. But yeah, good question. All right, so what am I doing now? Oh, okay, here you go. I don't know why this is popping up now, these like config parser errors, but here you'll see that the username netconf2 was authenticated and was authorized over SSH. So back to our example here, all I said was I want to get every gigabit Ethernet interface off of this device, right? The configuration of it. So I basically said, okay, check that box, build RPC, run RPC. And so this is basically running a netconf git operation, and it's using this as a filter. And so the result here is this. And you can see, the nice part is with this is you can actually see every interaction. So let me pull up where it starts. So you can see we connected on port 830, we sent a GET, and this is what we're sending, and that's the RPC, right? So we're using the native Yang module, right? And we're basically just leaving it open. We're saying gigabit Ethernet, that's it. Like we didn't specify a specific interface number. And so it was received by the host, and this is the output. You can see, and this is all, because we're using Netconf, this is all XML. So you can see the name, which is just the interface number, the IP address, so you can see kind of IP address, the mask, and then any other specific. I don't have much configured on the interface, so it's nothing like fun to look at, but you would see that here as well. And yeah, so like you can kind of understand, like, if you've done a little, I know Matt, I think Angel, and definitely Julio, if he's still here, they've done some things with DevNet and network automation, and others in the chat may have as well. I just know that they do because I see their activity on Discord. You can take this data, because it's just XML at this point, and you can, with Python, you can do whatever you can use the XML to dict library and convert it to a Python dictionary or JSON, either format, and then from there you can parse it out. You could parse it out using XML, but that's no fun. So okay, Julio, you're still here. Yeah, cool. I just wasn't sure. I don't have like a participant list. Like I can't see who's still here. So but yeah, like you can take all this data and parse it out. You can parse the XML directly, or you can convert it to like a Python dictionary and parse it. So yeah, so you see gig 1, gig 2 is right here, gig 3 is right here, gig 4, and that's it. I only have four interfaces. And this is just saying, yep, it finished, and then you request to close the session, and then it disconnected. So, and that's it. I don't know why it keeps doing these temporary sessions. I think it's trying to collect the configuration or something like that, but yeah. Matt says, I guess Yang Suite will be a Pathfinder tool like Postman is, then develop something in Python. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, think of it as that way. Like you can use, because I didn't really show this piece mostly because I haven't really messed around with it, but there's a RESTconf and a GNMI component as well, so you can test like RESTconf calls, which as you may or may not know, that's basically just using a URI. It's very much like a REST API call, and then you get JSON back. You can get JSON or XML, but obviously prefer JSON, or most people prefer JSON. So you can use that all within this tool. So yeah, I would say it's pretty much a Pathfinder, assuming you're talking about XPath and these filters we're using. So Julio says XML looks not fun to deal with, but I hear it's pretty flexible and powerful. It is. It's very, I like to just say it's very verbose. That's kind of a nice way of saying it's just a lot. There's just a lot there. So yeah, but like I said, if you only could use Netconf, or let's say you could only get XML, because a lot of older APIs, have XML. There's a lot of APIs out today that return XML. There's plenty of Python libraries out there to convert it to whatever data format you're looking for. So, all right. So now what I want to do is pull in a specific interface. So I had this working last night. So let me see if I can get it working now. Let's see. I think we can do gigabit Ethernet. Oops. I think we can say name. And unlike, by the way, unlike like YAML or even Python, it really isn't like indentation. There's nothing special about it with indentation. So like if you see it all spaced out or not even, don't rip my head off. So, and this is like, you know, helping me interpret this. This list here. So you'll see that within this you'll have name. The little key means that it's the key, and it's basically required, and is that unique value. So think of it as like a primary key. If you know databases, it makes it unique. So in our case, because we got the response over here, we know that the name is 1. Right, yeah, right here, name 1. So, and we got all of them because we didn't specify a specific name. So now all we're doing is specifying, and I feel like this looks goofy after seeing that output, so we're gonna back it up. So all we're saying now is, okay, get us a gigabit Ethernet, but make sure the name is just the first one. And so let's do this, run RPC. And it might error out, but we'll see. Well, while we wait on that, so whenever I was doing this yesterday, instead of having this checkbox, and there might be just something I'm missing here, or you know, there might be a column or whatever, this turned to a text box. So you would say, oh, like this. Shoot. Yeah, so instead of doing this RPC, like what I just did manually, you could just plug in what you want, just filling in the box, and then say build RPC, and then you'd have it, and then you could say run RPC. So I'm kind of interested though. I'm gonna wait for this. Maybe close this out. Start session. Oh, let's see. Sometimes for whatever reason it kind of it boots, or like it takes a while to catch up. So something interesting with, especially with Netconf, so as part of like the process, kind of think of it as like, you know, with routing adjacencies, right? It goes through a peering process, right? Well, you know, send hellos, exchange, make sure certain credentials match up, MTU size, link type, you know, whatever, right? There's certain parameters that need to be aligned. So with Netconf, because it is, you know, it's TCP based, you send a hello, and then so this is obviously my computer sending a hello, and then we received basically a hello back, and then our computer, our PC, asks for its capabilities, and its capabilities are basically, what can you offer me as far as, you know, what Yang data models or modules do you have available, right? And then you can go from there, right? So I could get a list of all the capabilities, and they're you know, server capabilities, but you basically could get a whole list and then kind of go from there. But we know kind of what's available based on a version of iOS XE running. So Alright, I don't know what's going on with this because it's not actually doing much. So I'm going to take that off. And let's see. So we're going to do... So I'm going to build this RPC and let's see if it's different. Hey, looky there. So I had it right. This one obviously wasn't that tough, but you can see it built the one that's down here, and mine's even identical, even down to the formatting pretty much. I might be a little more, one or two more spaces in, but you can see kind of the same deal as here. And so maybe to make it more interesting, let's see what it would look like if we wanted to pull instead of let's do this. So this, obviously, when we run it, let's see if it works this time. So if we run this, we're doing a get operation, right? And so we should just see Gigabit Ethernet 1 come back and its data, if it ever does. But instead of doing this, instead of doing a get, we'll actually edit. And so if we go to edit config, and so we should be able to use the same Yang data model, because that's the beauty of Yang, is that they have the data models built out. Now there is a an interface-oper, OPER, and that would be used for your model-driven telemetry, where you would collect data, right, stateful data. So think of it as like your input-output errors, all the different metrics you would find if, let's say, you did like show interface and then the name of the interface instead of show run. So, but we're not using that module. Remember, we're using the native interfaces module, not interfaces oper. So, and just to show you what that is, let me. I don't even have it up, so I'd actually have to plug it in up here. So if I type in interface, so you see interfaces oper here. So that's where your model-driven telemetry information would come from, is this module. And we're not going to go into it tonight because we'll actually have a separate, I'll have a separate stream where we dive into the oper and do model-driven telemetry and kind of build out a solution. So all right, so we're going to edit this description, and if we go back to if we go back here, so it must have, so we must have got the, it must have worked because well, doesn't mean the operation worked, but we authenticated and we're authorized. We'll check in a second. I just want to show you show in description. So you can see there's no descriptions, right, on any interface. So we're going to put on gig 1, we're going to say configured by Yang Suite as the description. Configured Yang Suite. So we changed the operation to edit config, right? And so what I expect to see is we're going to change, so this tag will change from get to edit, or edit-config. And then we will be, we'll include the name, but then we'll include the description as well, because remember, we have to always include the name because it's that primary key, or I'm calling it the primary key. It's known as a leaf and a key. It's actually known as a key, but primary key is, database lingo. So let's see what it looks like though. Okay, so interesting. All right, so there's a couple points here. We have edit config, which, like I said, it would change that get filter, or I'm sorry, the get operation to edit. The target, so this is something I didn't really touch on, but the target is, there's 3 different targets that Netconf, or 3 data stores that Netconf initializes or has. It's your running, running config. Basically, you're running data store, your startup data store, which obviously startup config, and a candidate data store. Now, the candidate data store, some Cisco devices, you can't use that data store because it's more basically not really used up until recently. You can enable it, but basically think of the candidate data store as you would put your configuration, your desired configuration in the candidate first. Think of it as like your staging, and then it would go into running, right? Versus just plugging it right into running. So instead of like configuring the running config and then pressing enter and then losing connection, you would put all that data into a candidate data store. So that's kind of where that came from. So, but you'll see here the idea is you can target running. I don't know if you can target startup directly, but you definitely can target running and candidate. But you can see here we're target the running config or running data store. And then you'll see the config is we point to the namespace. We say, okay, interface, the gigabit Ethernet, the name is 1. This is the new description. And then these are all just the closing tags to everything above here. Yeah, so Mr. Hopalong says, would candidate data store be more appropriate for iOS XR or Juniper? Yes, that's exactly what that's initially. I say that it's not being or starting to be used now because there's actually a way that you can enable it on a CSR. It has to be a certain iOS XE version, but you can enable it. But yeah, so Juniper kind of started it. And then iOS XR, I think also they've had it for a while too. But I just learned this last night actually. And let me show you. So if you do Netconf, Yang, I think it's feature, yeah. See, so you can enable the candidate data store on your device. And like I said, I forget what the iOS XE, like, you have to be a minimum, software version, but you can enable the candidate data store on a CSR. But yeah, the iOS XR and Juniper is where it kind of originated, I would say. And I'm sure there's someone that can correct me on that, but that's at least where I've heard of it first. Especially Juniper is where I kind of heard it first. But yeah, it's kind of neat that they can enable it on a CSR now, or an iOS XE device. All right. So let's go ahead and run this RPC. I don't know why this is frozen, but we'll get rid of that. All right. So editing. So now we're going to edit the description for interface 1. Let's see if it works. And let's go here. Okay, so this is interesting. So you see here, successfully authenticated, authorized, right? So we connected to the device, configured programmatically by a process. From console as Netconf. So Netconf, is my understanding, is enabled through guest shell, which is basically like, think of it as a small hypervisor on iOS XE that you could spin up. I'm sure you heard you could spin up Docker containers on a new iOS XE device running a certain version of code. So that's kind of where Netconf resides and all the processes that go with it. So it used one of the processes and to configure the device, and you see it configured from netconf/restconf by netconf 2. So you still require user. It doesn't just say configured by netconf. You actually require that authentication, and then it has a transaction ID. So the transaction ID is just as if you were at a bank, right? If you were to deposit or withdraw, that is it's cataloged as, hey, this transaction occurred on this date at this time with this unique identifier. Same thing with Netconf. It kind of is a all or nothing. It's a transaction. So we got, it looks like Marcos Julian says, hey Dan in chat. Hey Marcos, you're catching us at a real good time. We're configuring a CSR 1000 using Netconf and Yang data models. And we're actually about to validate it. So interesting enough though, did you see that? So I'm in the console of this device, and oh, never mind. I'm in config mode. I thought Netconf left it off in config mode, but I realized I was showing you guys that candidate data store feature. Okay. So what was I going to show? Oh, show interface description. Boom. There you go. Configure by Yang Suite. So that's configuring an interface. Oh, and here we go. This is the actual session, the details. So all of these messages, by the way, I may have not mentioned it, but they're called RPCs, or remote procedure calls. It's very popular in like the server, kind of the server world, this server administration. But it's obviously making its way into networking. So you see we connected, we sent an RPC, and this is, I mean, to a T, that's exactly what we had in our, we built our RPC. We have a message ID. This correlates to when you're connecting or talking with a device, you're saying, okay, hey, do this, here's my message ID, and then you're going to get that same message ID returned from the device to say, yep, we're good, or whatever the reply is. So, and we'll see that here in a second. So there's a message ID attached. We're saying edit the config. We're targeting the running data store, and then here's the config. Pretty simple. And you can see here, the message ID is right here. This is kind of the namespace, and then it just replies back with an OK. The RPC reply is just saying, yep, OK, looks good. But let's just see if I can. Okay, there we go. So you can see it's easier to view, but you can see that the RPC that we sent and the RPC reply are the same message ID. So that's why I was saying it's that correlation to say, okay, we know it's for the same operation. So yeah, so that's the RPC, and then here's the RPC reply with that same message ID. I just highlighted it and did Control F, so that way it's easier to see. Instead of like saying, the last 5 digits is 50E. Instead of doing that, like just copy the whole thing so it's, one for one. Okay, and then that was it. We just said that was it. That's all we wanted to do. You can close the session, and then we sent an RPC to close the session, and that was it. And we disconnected. So I hope you guys kind of all saw the power of Yang, and obviously we didn't really get to the programmatic side, but you can see kind of anything we want here, so we can actually shut down the interface. As crazy as that sounds. And I believe this is just hold on, let me see. We'll shut down interface 2. And we'll say, instead of saying configured by, we'll say shut down by interface 2. Let me just make sure. I don't think that's my uplink. No. Okay, so interface 2 right now is in an up state. So we're going to shut it down, and we'll add a description that says shut down interface. Shut down by Yang Suite. So we'll delete this. Build RPC. So, yeah, since shutdown is a kind of a, let me see if I can pull up the, I can't. I have to go to the Explore tab. What's really cool, I didn't touch on it. Maybe I will after we do this example. But you can actually explore the details of each and what all this means. So like shutdown here, because I just got the checkbox, I imagine it's like a Boolean, right? So Boolean's true, false. And so if we do, it basically looks just like the last one where we have, target is running, interface gig 2. And then a new description, and then we're just putting the shutdown, right? So let's just go ahead and run it. So go ahead and run it. Pop over to CML. Oh, it's already done. Let's see. All right, Matt says he has to jump. He studied for his exam tomorrow. Oh man, yeah, Matt, go ahead. Thanks for sticking around this long. I hope you pass your exam tomorrow. Yeah, if you, I mean, you know where to find me, Discord, Twitter. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. But good luck on your exam tomorrow, and thanks for tuning in. So yeah, so we have the config. We have the shutdown command here. Like I said, it's a true false, I imagine, and we'll verify that actually. But we get an RPC reply okay right here. So let's go see if it's shut down. Oops. There we go. Hey, there we go. All right, so we see we authenticated. Netconf over SSH. Configured programmatically by the Netconf process. Remember, these processes are, make up the Netconf process running, or the service. Configured from Netconf, yeah, blah blah blah. The transaction ID, like I said, that kind of correlates. It doesn't correlate directly to the message ID, but you have your message IDs, which basically keep track of the back and forth, and then the transaction ID is the entire transaction, right? The sending the configuration, replying back, that's one transaction. But you can see here, interface gig 2 is changed to admin down. So we successfully shut down gig 2, and what was the other thing? The description. There we go. So admin down, shut down by Yang Suite. And that's it. But there's a couple more in the chat here. Do you have a lab guide with a list of tasks to perform to get ready for the lab day? All in one go for all of the sections to perform to get ready for the lab. All in one go for all the sections. I know you're doing it piecemeal now, but eventually going to have to put it all together within an 8-hour block. Yeah, so I guess I probably should have mentioned this. I may have in past streams, but yeah, so we're kind of piecemealing it now together, Mr. Hopalong, and then kind of towards, I would say, mid-April probably will be my cutoff for the streams, because I'm planning to take it during the first week, hopefully the first day, which is May 2nd. So there's a good chance I'll quit streams about like early April into mid-April, so that way those last couple weeks I can just head down in the book, head down in the lab. But yeah, towards the end you'll see more of a larger, like these streams might be 2 to 3 hours, and hopefully we'll get more of a holistic approach. So we'll get Netconf, we'll start configuring devices via Netconf, ResConf. And then we will build a model-driven telemetry solution, using Grafana, Telegraph, InfluxDB. We'll dive into that. But the idea is we're piecemealing for now, and then by the end, probably like I said, beginning of April, we'll have kind of a longer stream, and it might be a weekend stream, to be honest. I don't know yet. I'll tell you, I don't think I'll be doing like a full 8-hour stream to like mimic the lab, but yeah, I might have a longer stream that puts it all together. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we'll have a longer stream, but yeah, for now we'll just be piecemealing, and the idea is for those that aren't in the live stream, they can view each of these videos and kind of in an order and be like, okay, I learned this, I learned that, and then by the end, when we do a longer stream, it kind of puts everything together. So But good question. So, all right. So we've configured an interface. We configured the description. We shut down an interface. We could do an IP address, but let's see. Let me pull up. So if we do an IP address, it is under, so the nice part is, I don't know if I pulled it, no, shoot, I might have canceled it out. The nice part is, you could, if you just did a get, and you got every single interface here, you can kind of get an idea of how it looks, so that way, like, you can pull just, for example, configuring IP. Like, yeah, we could click through the menus here and find how to build it. So like here, for example, we can say IP. We find it. Let's see. Router? No, that's not it. Network broadcast. You know what? It could be under. Oops. So here, let me just show you. So we'll just do build an RPC. So we're not even going to pull a specific interface. We're going to do our original call, which will pull all of, oops. Or shoot, what did I just get? Build this RPC again. All right. So we're just gonna pull every single gigabit Ethernet interface like we did at the very beginning, and I'll kind of show you what I mean. So I guess what I'm getting to is you can pull the structure of how the interface looks, right? And you can just cut out the parts you're not looking for or that you don't need when it comes to editing. So like, for example, the IP address, we can understand, okay, how the IP address looks in the data structure, and then just change that specific piece and then send that. Can you send multiple RPC in one call? Yes. So Angel asks, can you send multiple RPCs in one call, if you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, so you can see that the RPCs, they are or the connections, right? So think of it, to slow it down a little bit. You have a TCP connection, and you establish that over port 830, which is the default Netconf port, and then using SSH, as you know, a TCP using SSH, and so you connect to the device, and then you can send your RPC calls. Remember, are like you send it's much like TCP, the protocol itself. You send something, you get a reply back, right? That's kind of the same way. You send an RPC, you get an RPC reply. Send another RPC, you get another RPC reply. You can send multiple RPCs, and the way it keeps track of that is by that message ID that we talked about, or that I showed you. So yeah, you can send multiple RPCs, and that message ID keeps track of what it replied to, or the replies. And then once that's all done, we can put it that it's considered one transaction. So hopefully that answers your question. And I'll show you an example. I don't know why this is like taking so slow. Well, the funny thing is, it's not even being slow. You can see here that it, oh, that was 3 minutes ago. Let me send it again. So maybe what I'll do, and this is if the data gets, we can collect this. There you go. So we'll do this as one RPC, and then we'll collect all the data, or we'll collect every interface, and then we'll change the description on interface 3, and then no shut the interface 2, and then print out all this one more time. So that way there's technically 4 RPCs in one. Yeah, so he said that's Angel says that's neat. Concatenate multiple requests into one, keep track of it. Yeah, exactly. So it's super nifty. Like I said, like using a tool like this that was pretty easy to stand up, and then visualizing a lot of this, it might seem pretty elementary, like, you know, doing it on stream and just kind of going through the very basic steps, but just nailing this piece down, you'll be able to translate your knowledge of all of this into, you know, however you want to interact. You can use just curl, NC client, well, curl with RESTconf, but NC client, like all of those all these concepts kind of translate over to the other tools. So that's kind of why I'm spending a lot of time just in this tool. All right, so we have this. So how about this? So we're gonna let me copy this, paste it. All right, so we have we're gonna get the interface configuration for all the interfaces at the beginning and at the end. And now we're gonna change. We're gonna build an RPC to change interface 2. Third time, or shoot, we said interface 3. So we're going to build an RPC to edit that config, and you see I'm going a little quicker now. Actually, I'll just delete that because I forgot. It'll just append to the end of this text file. Alright, so this is saying, okay, let's change the description for interface 3, and then we're just going to do a simple, and I'm going to build this one manually. I'm feeling confident. And we're not changing the description, we're just going to say shutdown. Because remember, shutdown is Boolean. It's either true or false. So we're just gonna no shut. Actually, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna no shut gig 2. No shut by Yang Suite. Alright, so we have all of that, and then I'm not gonna print it actually. So we'll run this here in a second. Let's see. Sorry, I just saw your chat messages are rolling in. It froze for a sec. Mr. Hopalong says, is the DevNet lab experience purely a Linux environment or a mix of Linux and Windows that you bounce between? So from my understanding, it's going to be all Linux, and that goes back to, I think, what I showed earlier here. So they have this cool link, and I'll put it in the chat real quick, so that way you can, you know, check it out yourself as well. Okay, so check out that link in the chat. So it tells you what's going to be there, the equipment and software list. So you'll see that there's these virtual machines, and so you'll see Ubuntu Linux 2004, and that's what I'm primarily using for all my studies. And then this list of software I just installed on the Ubuntu VM. And then there's some down here, this third-party software, NSO, and Yang Suite. Or I'm sorry, this software, Docker, Nginx, Grafana. This is to build your, you know, model-driven telemetry lab. So, And you asked, you were going to do an IP address. True. Yes, I will do that. And Angel says, I think Dan is using the recommended environment from the DevNet expert. Yeah, Angel, that's kind of what I was going through there. But yeah, if you have any questions, definitely check that out. Check out this page, and I put the link in the chat. Okay. So, we were gonna do an IP address. Let's do an IP address on. Let's create an interface. Let's see if I can create an interface. I guess that's that's what I'm gonna go after. Let's see, interface. Boom. Okay. So I have to change some things up here, but let's see if I can do it. Oh, you know what? I'm not gonna create an interface. I'll just change an interface because I realized creating one, I'll have to use a different interface container. I'll have to use a loopback instead of a gigabit Ethernet. But I will cheat a little bit and use this here. So we'll change. We'll add one to 4. Or no, we'll just add it to 3 here. It's messy, isn't it? Oops. All right. Oops. Where does this go? Gigabit interface. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Hopalong asks, so you won't have to write a Python script that works in Linux and Windows. Yeah, correct. Yeah, you'll have to. There might be a requirement. I'm not going to roll it out, but yeah, the development environment is strictly just Linux. Okay, so we are going to create. So we're going to make it real interesting. So for Gigabit Ethernet 3, we're going to create an IP address of 33.33.33.33. We'll just do a /24 mask since, you know, it's just a baloney IP address anyways. But you can see the structure, right? So you have IP, address, primary, address, mask, and then you just have the closing tags. So for this one, we are going to get all the interfaces, and then we're going to configure a description for interface for Gigabit 3, and then an IP address for Gigabit 3, and then lastly configure or change the description for Gigabit 2 and no shut it, hopefully. All right, and at all at the same time, we're going to say this is how we run it. Or, sorry, we're going to run multiple RPCs. All right, so... Okay, so you can see how it's going now. So you can see that it was configured. Configure from Netconf, transaction ID 31. I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty fast, right? So you'll see session ID. All right, so I actually found this out just for those interested, and I found it out because of so there's not two versions of Yang, but there's a revised RFC for Yang. It's I forget the RFC number, but it's Yang 1.1. And I found that with Yang 1.1, Netconf it doesn't require, Netconf doesn't have to send its traditional hello and ask for capabilities. It's changed for, I forget, there's a different message though that gets sent. I saw it in the RFC though, but just figured throw it in there. So there's a chance that in the future this could change. Instead of sending the hello and then asking for the server capabilities, it might change. Anyways, that was just kind of a fun tidbit. Alright, so we're saying, so we said, hey, get us all the gigabit Ethernet interfaces. And so it did. So it got 1 for us, it got 2 for us, and then it got 3 for us. Okay, so done. And then we said, okay, RPCs, that RPC is complete, send the next RPC. And we said target gigabit Ethernet 3, change the description to configured by Yang Suite for the 3rd time, change the IP address to 3333/24. Got another RPC reply, says okay, and so Netconf says, yep, that's complete. We're going to send the last RPC. And here we are targeting, and I kind of highlighted over this before, but we're targeting just the running data store, which obviously is a running config. And so we have the interface gigabit Ethernet 2. We change the description to no shut by Yang Suite, and then we send the shutdown configuration. And so hopefully, I would assume that it was shut down and now it's going to be no shut. But we'll see. There might be, my thing is there might be a, you might have to specify shutdown and then put like no or a different value instead of just calling the same, shutdown command. So we'll check that. But everything else I'm pretty confident in. And you can see RPCs, we got a RPC reply of okay. RPCs complete, close session. And then it disconnects. That's pretty cool though. You see it, like, there you go, there's your multiple RPCs. The message ID, I'll go ahead and highlight this, and then let's just make sure that the message ID, let's see, 1, 2. So yeah, so you can see the message IDs are different, right? And so that's for the first RPC. The second RPC is right here. So you can see these are the two different. There's 3 RPCs, 3 different message IDs because they, that's how they keep track of the different transactions. So Mr. Hopalong asks, do you still need to send a copy, run, start, or write mem to save it? Yes. So you will have to do that because by default, and I could stand corrected on it, but you normally do have to send a write mem, and you can see that here. If we did save it, it would pop up as write memory. Because remember, I guess a good way to think of it is, let me go back to here. So remember, our target is the running data store. And remember, our startup config would be the startup data store. So if we wanted, we could target just the startup or both, and it would technically save it. But yeah, we're just targeting the running. So if you wanted just to target the running, then we'd have to send an additional command or RPC to say, okay, copy the run to start. Or you could target a different data store. And by the way, I didn't mention this, but at the top here you can see candidate, running, and startup. And those are, like I said, those are the different data stores. Okay, so let's see. Oops. So I didn't see a message about gigabit Ethernet 3 being shut. So there's a chance that that command that did not work. But we'll see. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 not being on no shut. And yeah, you can see that it's still shut down. So that was the only one that failed. I'm sure there's something that didn't. It just didn't work. So we'll have to change that. But go to show interface description. So show interface description, you'll see that, well, I highlighted over it. Gig 3 now has that IP address configured. We'll just do a quick look. So IP address with the /24 mask, and then the description saying configured by Yang Suite for the third time. The description for gig 1 we didn't touch. Gig 2, we changed the description to no shut by Yang Suite, but we didn't turn up the interface again. So that we'll have to change, or that we would have to fix. I'd have to look into it a little more on what needs changed, but that shutdown command or configuration we'd have to manipulate a little bit. I got to figure out what needs changed, but yeah, that's about it. I'll save this. So I'll figure it out. Might not save it because all of this was just, made up config. So maybe I'll just kind of restart fresh. That's about it. That's all I have for this stream. I really just wanted to dive into Yang Suite. I definitely especially after going through it on stream for kind of a second night, I definitely like it that much more. I think it's a very good tool, especially if you're trying to learn about Yang data models, and Netconf and RESTconf, and how kind of the different transports work and how they interact with the device. I highly recommend it. And it's free. I showed you guys, showed everyone the installation page. It's free. So you have your Docker based installation, which I used. This works really good. And then there's also, like it says, there's a Python virtual environment installation. So yeah, very easy to install. Mr. Hopalong asks, is the networking config of the DevNet Expert Lab presuming a CCNA route and switch or higher knowledge? Good question. So I was trying to think about that the other day, because you can see a lot of it is related to building out, Python, programming software. Obviously that's the main focus, but I think I would say you probably need at least CCNA. I would even say CCNP, because it dives a little deeper into, it looks like it dives deeper into BGP and the peering aspects. And obviously with BGP peering, there's a lot of different attributes. So I would say definitely CCNA, probably CCNP. There's an assumption that you have at least your CCNP. But there's nothing out there that says you should have X amount of knowledge. But I think having a CCNP would give you enough. You'd have enough knowledge to understand, Netconf, RESTconf, but even how configuring these different, knowing how to configure the different features here, you would definitely need at least your CCNA. So, but if you ask me, I would say probably your CCNP. At least the Encore exam, or ENCOR, ENCOR. I would say at least that, so that way you have a basic understanding of how to configure each of these protocols. That would be my recommendation. But okay, so yeah, I think we got a good amount of things accomplished. I'll go ahead and I'm gonna put this link in the chat, so that way if you're interested in the tool, just to read about it, feel free to use that link. If you want to install it, I read through the documentation kind of first. I glanced through it to figure out, okay, how's it installed, what are some basic things we'll be running, you'll run through. So I went through each of those steps: the device profiles, the Yang repository, then the Yang data sets, I think they're called. So yeah, so yeah, definitely encourage you to use it and try it out. Especially Yang data models are not easy, especially if you're new to viewing them. Like viewing these Yang data models without much background, they can be kind of tough. This is the revision, so it's kind of unfair. But you can kind of see. I mean, the syntax is basic, but like understanding and viewing this versus show output, night and day. So. Mr. Hopalong says, one-liner config seems easy enough with Netconf. Possible to demonstrate a multi-line ACL or some other time is okay too. Yeah, so there's a good chance that because the ACLs, you have to configure an ACL in, where's it at? Yeah, access control list. ACLs are part of automating like 3.2. I will be definitely practicing that, and so there's a good chance in another stream, probably like I said, later towards April-ish, early April, when we do kind of a longer stream with different objectives, I'll probably have that. But if you're in the meantime, if you're curious, I would recommend going into Yang Suite and looking at the ACL module. So you can see there's ACL and then ACL Opper. Let's see, load modules. So ACL, remember, Opper is your operational state. So that would be like how many hits does the ACL get? Whereas just ACL will be, configuring your entries and getting it up and running. And so check out this module. And so yeah, it's found in here anyways. Let me see, towards the bottom maybe. Oh, this one was tough because it's funny you asked about it because I looked this up last night. It was because these aren't in a specific order, it was so tough to find access lists. AAA, logging, control plane, route tag interface, policy, no, policy, it's empty. Anyways, I would say check this out. Check out the ACL module. If you're like me, I mean, I want to also understand it from the actual just straight up Yang module. So if you go here, you can read through how to set it up. So you have to understand how to read through it, but this is the port type. But you can see, if you go down through here, you can basically piece it together to understand how to make an extended ACO. I like Dan, gives me inspiration to continue. Hey, that's what I'm here for, Angel. That's literally the only reason I do these streams, so people can see that there's kind of can be the struggles of studying, but also I try to teach some things as well, because I know it'd be boring if you were just watching me study in silence. So and it's actually fun for me. I feel like if I can explain a topic to where others can understand in an hour, 2 hour long stream, then I'm doing something right. So Mr. Hopalong says, can you use Yang Suite with the DevNet Reserve Labs? I would assume so. I'm sure some of the Reserve Labs come with Yang Suite on the dev box, or there's dev boxes that come with the Reserve Labs. If not, I'm sure there's a way that once you VPN in, that you can use it. Yeah, so Control F, for some reason, I don't know why or what, but if I do Control F, let me look up interface. Oh, it does work. You might be onto something. Okay, so this is it. Okay, there we go. ACL. Is that it? Oh, ACL. Where's the other ACL? Let me see. So Control F does work. For some reason, I had an issue where like it wouldn't like it wasn't working last night. So, but for some reason, like I don't see ACL right now. But supposedly, like it's highlighted. Highlight all. Let's do this. Weird, yeah. So Control F does work. You definitely, yeah, you got me there. I don't know where it's at. Like I see the module here. I have no idea. And it might also be, so like, you know, you saw how I had to create the Yang set from the repository. So maybe there is something missing. Maybe I got the wrong module or something like that. I don't know. I really don't. But anyways, hey, you have all the tools now. You definitely, you know, kind of have a little sneak peek with Yang Suite, and then you also, you know, have, like I said, this GitHub has all your Yang models, and you can get specifically, wow, I don't know why I scrolled. You can get down to whatever iOS XE version or NXOS or iOS XR, whatever you're running. You can kind of review these Yang data models. So. Mr. Oplong says, thanks for doing these streams and answering questions. Definitely learning from your experience. Yeah, I'm happy you guys. I should say I'm equally happy that you guys are in the chat asking the questions. I will say, like, you know, you mentioned you know, doing longer streams and kind of putting it all together. And trust me, like that's something I know I definitely have to do. It's just for me right now, it's easier to piecemeal it and then get to a point where then we could do a really long stream, like, you know, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever, later on. But yeah, I appreciate you being here, and I'm more than grateful. I definitely can help you out. I no problem helping, and I'm glad you're learning from my experiences. Hopefully it encourages you to go out and check out a Yang data model, because I'll tell you, as Matt Steele said, it is before Yang Suite, it was terrible. You had to go through that Yang Explorer tool, or you had to just read these Yang data models, and like you can see this is an ACL, so but you can see like this is not as fun as clicking through these nice little drop down menus and seeing like everything visualized. So definitely the tools are there now. So hey Blues, you dropping in. Yeah, sorry, I don't know if you just got here or you just been chilling, but we're kind of wrapping up the stream now. We dove deep into Netconf and Yang data models, and we'll be looking at it again. So you know, if you missed tonight's stream, or you know, missed some of tonight's stream, we'll definitely be looking at it in the next stream as well. So that's all I have. If anyone has questions, feel free to put anything in the chat. If you have any like last minute questions, otherwise, you know, hope you all enjoyed it. It seems like you guys definitely enjoyed it. You know, you guys stuck around. This is a longer stream, so thank you guys for sticking around. It's almost 2 hours. It's one of my longer streams, so really appreciate it. This is definitely it's not easy. It's not easy stuff to entertain people for almost 2 hours. Yeah, thanks for joining tonight. And yeah, if you have questions, I'm on the I don't know if anyone, I know some of you are, but the Art of Network Engineering Discord. If you're unfamiliar with the Art of Network Engineering, it's a really awesome community, great podcast as well. They're on Twitter, they're on any of your, you know, podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts. They have a Discord server, and I'm in there. Probably not as active as I should be. I try to be, but you know, work and streaming and studying. So But Discord's a good way to get a hold of me on that server, or on Twitter at DevNetDan. So either way works. You can DM me on Twitter. You can just I don't know what the proper term is, but yeah, you can just put something out there. I'm available. Definitely, I like helping people and encouraging and showing others that it's not as daunting or difficult. There's definitely a way. It just takes a little bit of time. So, all right. Well, I didn't see any other questions kind of roll in. Julio, thank you for the encouragement, man. I really had a good time talking with you, and let's talk again real soon. I want to know more about some of your endeavors, projects. So yeah, we'll talk again soon. But thanks for all the questions tonight, Mr. Hopalong. I haven't seen you in the chat before, I don't think, but I really appreciate you being here and asking your questions. Oh, and I just saw your last message here. Full disclosure, I'm learning the dev core through Cisco CE. Some of these topics are hard. Oh yeah, I remember those days. I did the what is it called? Cisco Digital Learning, the on-demand dev core course. It was like the self-paced one. Yeah, that was tough. It's so different from what you're used to. If you're a traditional like network engineer, I mean, it goes into like software dependencies and deploying software, and how to make sure that specific software, like how microservice architecture work. Like, yeah, it's crazy. But hey, I personally enjoyed it. It was very hard to understand, but I personally enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, if you enjoy it, that's awesome. If you don't, yeah, I don't. It's tough because it kind of does start separating people. They're like, I don't know if I want to do the software development, but I really like the network automation, because it starts diving a little deep in the software development pool. So all right, that's it for tonight. I am gonna wrap it up, and yeah, just let me know if you need anything. I'm available. Like I said, Discord, Twitter are probably the best places to hit me up. So thanks again for everyone in the chat tonight, and we will talk next Thursday. All right, see you later.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the